Hello and welcome. My name is Zafar Iqbal, and you're watching the Mojo Story. There are lots of developments that are taking place in India's neighborhood, particularly in Pakistan and Afghanistan, the two countries that went to war with each other. And since then, there are negotiations taking place between the two countries which seem to have fallen. Now, that's the ceasefire that was brokered in Istanbul, but all those developments that are taking place in Pakistan and in Afghanistan do have implications for India. Uh, India, remember, Afghanistan's foreign minister recently visited India. He was here on an extended trip and he met with Indian leadership. India has again opened its embassy in Afghanistan. So all those things have been happening as the talks between Pakistan and Pakistan and Afghanistan continue, and there is clearly a deadlock between those negotiations. Although a ceasefire is in place, but it's a very fragile ceasefire. To understand what's happening in India's neighborhood and what are the possible implications for India, we today joined by an eminent panel. Let's introduce our guest. We're joined by Padma Rao. She's a senior foreign correspondent. She has covered foreign affairs for decades and she knows the subject like the back of her hand. We're also joined by Professor Harsh V. Pant. He's the Vice President of ORF. Welcome to Mojo Story, Harshji and Padma Rao. If I may start with you, Padma Rao, what is the sense that you make? Afghanistan and Pakistan went to war with each other. Afghanistan killed many of Pakistan's soldiers, and Pakistan launched strikes, aerial strikes on Afghanistan. And then the two countries went for a sort of a ceasefire and a negotiated settlement, which doesn't seem to be happening. One of the roadblocks that's being reported is the use of drones by Pakistan. Afghanistan wants a written assurance from Pakistan that its airspace will not be used for carrying out drone operations, but Pakistan already has an understanding with America and they are not going to change that. The other thing is Pakistanis say that they want concrete written assurances from Taliban about TTP, that TTP should not use its territory. What's the stumbling block? And do you think that there could be any progress on that front before we talk about implications for India?
Good evening, Dr. Pant. I think, first of all, your very question, let's look at who are the chief negotiators. You're absolutely right. I don't expect the ceasefire to last. And also because, going by the history of Afghanistan, I don't think ceasefires mean even as much as the paper that they're written on in that area, in that turbulent part of the world. We've had many, 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 many occasions since the Soviet invasion when there have been ceasefires which have been, signed or agreed upon and repeatedly broken. Now, let's look at who are the chief negotiators in this. The Qatar and Turkey being the chief negotiators, Zafar, is for me in itself a statement that speaks silent volumes. I mean, Turkey is close to Pakistan, while Qatar, one doesn't exactly know where Qatar stands on matters pertaining to specifically the Taliban. Since once upon a time it had strained ties with the Taliban. Then there's a matter of where Qatar and Turkey stand vis-a-vis the US, the United States, and this is important in light of the United States, Washington's own ambitions, specifically President Trump's ambitions in Afghanistan. We all know he wants the Bagram Air Base back. He's been saying that since President Biden ordered that withdrawal. Indeed, it was Trump who had earlier ordered the withdrawal, or rather, recommended a withdrawal. So all these are interlinked, I think, and I think most of all, why won't the ceasefire last? Two reasons. To cut a long story short, it's a very complicated thing. If we start digging those layers, we can go on all evening. I think two reasons. One is because, as I said, the region is known for its turbulence and known for its unpredictability. Two, the players involved. And there's a multitude of them. There is the Afghan Taliban, there is the Tehrik-e-Taliban, there is the Haqqani group. There's a multitude of groups that support insurgency against Pakistan. along the Durand line. So none of them are predictable players. None of them, you don't know. There could be something being signed in Istanbul and or in Ankara, and that could be broken on the ground. So that is the second reason, and the third reason I feel is this drone. These drones. I mean, they are U.S. drones, as we know in the interim, and we have also been told by Pakistan that when I say we, the larger public, that agreement with the United States cannot be broken. I see this as the beginning of these are the first few steps being taken by Pakistan on behalf of the United States to establish its presence there. Today it's drones, tomorrow it could be something else. Safar?
Right. Well, that's an important point to make. This is a very complex situation that's been developing. And of course, India would be keeping a close watch on that situation. But Harji, if I may come to you, uh, you know, of course, India has invited Taliban minister to its country and then opened up an embassy there. But all these developments that are taking place between Afghanistan and Pakistan could have implications for India also. How would India be watching this situation that's developing in its neighborhood?
I think for India, this is obviously very very serious situation that is developing, and we have known for a very long time that whatever was said at the height of Pakistan's irrational exuberance when Taliban came back to power. I think many in India had known that there are fundamental fault lines between the two that will lead to an explosive situation eventually, and that's what we are witnessing today. That ultimately, the two nations, if you will, are not at ease with each other because fundamental issues are not resolved between the two countries.
Yeah.
Now, so long as that continues, that means that the turbulence on India's western frontier would remain at a very high level, and that is there are two aspects to it. One, of course, is that you have internal turbulence in Pakistan, you have internal turbulence in Afghanistan, and you have the border areas, the Durand line problem that Afghanistan and Pakistan have. That will continue to be, to create space for all kinds of actors. Padmaji mentioned a number of them, whether it is Afghan Taliban, TTP, Haqqanis, all of these groups use that ungoverned space for their own ends, and they will continue to do it. So the larger problem of terrorism, the threat emanating from there for India, would continue unabated. So that's one side. The other is that allows Pakistan in some ways a diplomatic political space to then continue to say that, look, we are facing this problem on the other side, so why not drag India into it? Why not bring India? Why not create another problem on India's border, so that you know because they have been inefficient, they have not been able to solve their problems with Afghanistan. Creating a problem on the Indian border is the least thing that they can do. Least the one of the most is one of the steps that they can take to take the focus away from the problem that they are facing vis-a-vis Afghanistan. And that means that whether India likes it or not, whether India is prepared or not, that challenge for India on its western frontier would continue in multifarious ways, and India therefore will be watching very carefully, irrespective of this outreach that India has made to the Taliban, because there is no guarantee that things would stabilize.
Absolutely. And you know, when you spoke about Taliban taking over Afghanistan, the kind of statement that were issued from Pakistan, that ISI chief went to Kabul and was sipping a cup of tea. It was making a big statement that, look, we are in control. Where is that control? They, because irrespective of the regime in Afghanistan, fundamentally they are same on one issue, whether it's Durand line, whether it's problems with Pakistan. They don't differ, and that's probably the miscalculation that Pakistan has made, a big miscalculation here. Padma, you would agree?
To an extent, yes, I would agree, Zafar. There's only a small thing I'd like to add to that. It's a note of warning actually to India, because that's not something that we can really rely upon. The Taliban and how its relationship with Pakistan is going to pan out because of the US element, I feel. Pakistan, yes, you're right. When the ISI chief went to Kabul and sipped his cup of tea, it was perhaps hoped that because of the common faith and, the Pashtun commonality of the borders and all that, that there might be a bhai kind of situation. But Zafar, you and I think Professor Pant will agree. I mean, history has shown us that nobody can actually conquer Afghanistan, and whoever's actually in power in Kabul, it is impossible for outside powers to completely conquer them, or have them under their sway, hold them under their sway and control. And I would say, especially and more so, since the US president has made known his ambitions, for rare earths and minerals, and spoken about it at length. He had said we want it back soon. Then he said, if you don't give us Bagram back, bad things are going to happen, and he's all this kind of thing. So they've made it very clear. So the Taliban will be on their guard, even as far as Pakistan is concerned, which is one of the reasons why I don't believe in the ceasefire. Coming to what Professor Pant was saying on, the danger for India, I also see it that they might build up on their eastern border. They might sort of increase hostilities against India. I've been listening to some analysts, army generals specifically, who say that the Pakistan armed forces, if they start fighting the Taliban, as they have been doing indeed, by curiously sometimes even bombing their own people in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa recently in September. So I think once they're fully engaged with combating the Taliban, generals, I'm quoting generals, who say that they will not have the wherewithal to also keep up a battle on the Indian, front. But having said that, yes, I think that India has. I would like to say, turn lemons. What's the saying? Turning lemons into lemonade.
Lemon,
I think
yeah.
India can, turn this into a very good opportunity, and it is already doing so by engaging with the Taliban. So we're headed for a very interesting game of chess, if you like, to put it sort of a little nonchalantly, but possibly a bloody game of chess if it leads to that. But we're already seeing the involvement of all the big players converging in the region yet again, with the focus on Afghanistan, Russia, China, India, the United States, and Pakistan. In other words, all the usual suspects. Zafar?
And there is this factor of Pakistani leadership right now. Its army chief, particularly Asim Munir. Now, Afghan Taliban have in fact issued a direct threat to him. We can actually uh, play that sound bite, and you know what exactly he said. Uh, okay, it's not playing here, but he had clearly said that it Afghans are not going to tolerate Asim Munir, and if he wants to fight, he can come directly and fight with them, not send his soldiers. That is precisely what they had said, and there were many casualties that were inflicted on Pakistan. Now, Pakistan has been resorting to this diversionary tactic, saying that India is responsible. Particularly, Pakistan's Defense Minister Khwaja Asif made repeated statements that Taliban is an Indian proxy. How is it an Indian proxy, Taliban? Because it was Pakistan that sheltered Taliban for all these years. They were they Pakistan is the country that brought them to the fore in the first place, supported them, groomed them, established them. Now it's a monster that's come back to eat them. Like they say, like Hillary Clinton's famous quote, you cannot have snakes in the backyard and expect them not to bite you, Harshi.
See, this is such an old template for Pakistan that I think we should stop being surprised by this. And every time, if you take the last 75, 76 odd year history of Pakistan, I mean, you will get an umpteen number of issues where they create a problem themselves. It's an internally generated problem because they are inefficient. They can't manage their institutions well. They can't manage their problems well, and then it's very easy to blame someone else. And India, of course, is the favorite whipping boy, and it in a way it also is helps them domestically. Whoever is in power certainly can cement their power by using the India tab. Now, I am, in this particular case, of course, we know the history, and we only have to go 3 years back to, as we were discussing the sipping of tea, how Pakistani generals were, beaming with the fact that for once India has been defeated. India had invested so much in Afghanistan, in the democratic Afghanistan, and now as it has come crumbling down. It is the moment of great glory for Pakistan, because Pakistan can't take on India directly. This is an indirect defeat of India, and now the same people who they were, putting up as as India's defeat, as the symbols of India defeat have now becoming India's chess point. So in some ways, this hypocrisy, this ability to to go back on one's own position, this has been classic Pakistan double speak, and I don't think we should be surprised at it. But I think this engagement that India and Afghanistan are building, you could have easily imagined a situation if Pakistan had used the capital that it certainly had at one point in Afghanistan better. This situation would not have arisen. Now, I think this situation, the way India and Afghanistan and the Taliban government in Afghanistan are seeing eye to eye, not on all, but on some issues, is a tribute to the failure of Pakistan in a spectacular way, because for a country that had been claiming the championship, glory in Afghanistan, is now looking at itself being made the villain by the those who are governing Afghanistan today. So there is an element
Yes.
of a challenge which Pakistan is facing, but problem for India is that creates in some ways negative externalities for the region. And as Padma ji was mentioning, you have now the great game once again being
Yeah.
played in Afghanistan. All these actors coming back and with their own agendas, and what you once hoped would be a strong, stable, if not democratic, but somewhere an institutionalized Afghanistan, today once again is falling victim to its own history and its own geography, which is very unfortunate from India's perspective.
And yes, Padma, but just a point that I want to make here. The Pakistani general, the ISI chief Faiz Hamid, who was sipping tea, was court-martialed in Pakistan in a different scenario because he was supposed to be closer to Imran Khan. He is in jail right now. Padmaji, just look at the complexities.
As Professor Pant says, that is Pakistan. You can't expect consistency from Pakistan. You'll find thousands of such examples of inconsistency. Now, just one last point I make, because I have to go, unfortunately, and
Yeah,
leave this
yeah.
very interesting discussion. Zafar, this curious airstrike in KPK last month in September, in which women and children were killed. I mean, this was Pakistan's own people. These were their own people. I have a very strong feeling we are going to see more and more such attacks along the entire border areas of between Afghanistan and Pakistan. And this, I feel, there's a reason for this. It's a concerted setting up the ground, setting the scene for the eventual entry of the United States with lots of stuff which is bigger than drones, and because knowing there will be, each time you do these pinpricks, strikes here and strikes there, there will be retaliation even within, lots of violence within Afghanistan also, in Kabul, and the Taliban blaming Pakistan for those attacks. I think all these are very, very they're moves they're very conscious moves being made by Pakistan, knowing with the intention of provoking retaliation from the Taliban, because then it will be easier to sell to domestic audiences even within Pakistan, say that, look, the Taliban is launching strikes, we need help. And they hope that in this way they will be able to justify the US slowly building up its military presence in Pakistan, in order to counter terrorism. That's always the cloak counter Islamist terrorism, but we all know what is actually what the United States actually seeks in Afghanistan. So we're in for a very, very interesting time.
Absolutely.
Safar.
Harji, I want to come to you in the end. This is a big game that's being played out. Asim Munir goes and he suddenly becomes a darling of America and Trump. The same Trump who a few years ago called out Pakistan for sheltering Osama bin Laden. Today, Trump says that we left Afghanistan, we left the Bagram base, we're going to take it back. If we don't take it, bad things are going to happen. Typical Trump way, bad things are going to happen. And he says that why did we leave that? But it was Trump and his team who were negotiating with Taliban at that time. One really doesn't understand where this game is going, but the focus is back on Afghanistan. And whenever there has been some problem in Afghanistan, it has had an impact in India. One way or the other, it has created an impact in India. If the Soviets left, then the Mujahideen were pushed to a different direction. The entire culture of Kalashnikovs that were sent to Kashmir, to before that to Punjab, and the developments are moving at a very, very fast pace. How, of course, India is looking at this carefully, and they have called the Afghan foreign minister here. But what is the guarantee? It's a very fluid situation. As I say, that it was Taliban, Pakistani ISI chief sipping tea just 2, 3, 4 years ago, and today the tables have completely turned.
Yes, I think it's a very fluid situation, and you have to be nimble enough to respond to it. And I think that's the most important, feature of today's diplomatic environment. That you can't really be very rigid in your approach, and you really can't have these silos, or these black and white approaches to foreign policy issues. And therefore, India's engagement with Taliban, much as many in India would not like it, is reasonable, because engagement. Let's also be honest, is not endorsement. India is not endorsing everything that Taliban is doing. But how do we pursue our interests if we are not even engaged with the regime that, by all practical purposes, at this point is the regime in the country? There is no other alternative. So it's not as if there are multiple avenues available for India, which at one point there were, to pursue its own ambitions, its own interests. And I think, given what we have been discussing, that there are so many actors with very conflicting agendas at play, and given that this is India's neighborhood, we really cannot afford to be away from action in some ways, and away from the center of power in Kabul. And I think that, therefore, the recent visit was an important one. This recent engagement was an important one. The issue would be how we take it forward, and whether we are sustained in our outreach, or whether this was something one-off and ad hoc, or there is an institutionalized mechanism now available for us to reach out to Kabul in ways that we have not done since the fall of the government 3 years back. And particularly, I think, with the US playing a larger role and US showing its interest, India will have to engage at multiple levels with multiple stakeholders, including, for example, Russians and Central Asians. So I think there is a larger issue here beyond just India, Pakistan.
Absolutely. And this entire world powers, they seem to be somehow connected to this big game that's playing out. Different countries with different interests, but of course the battleground remains the same. Thank you so much, Professor Harsh Pant and Padma Raoji, for joining us today and for sharing your thoughts. And thanks to our viewers for watching the Mojo Story. Thank you.
It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.